Very often you have bodybuilders and athletes claim to be 2% or 1% fat. Most of that is garbage, because if you go, 3% of fat on a male body is what's known as essential body fat. And the body never wants to touch that fat because, among other things, this particular so-called essential fat, it holds the kidneys in place. It's needed for nerve insulation. The body will not touch go below 3% fat unless you're in a starvation situation. And let me give you a flat, hard fact. If you go below 3% body fat, you're going to be losing a ton of muscle. So 3% fat is about as low a healthy level of body. It's not even healthy. It's about as low as level of body fat as a man can get. Most of the really ripped bodybuilders that you see, I mean, I'm talking about the guys that are shredded, that look like they have cross cuts on top of cuts. Those guys are anywhere from 5 to 7% fat. The average level of body fat is 15% fat in a man. At 15% fat, you're not ripped, but you don't have any hanging fat. In other words, you just look smooth, but you're not ripped. With each percentage point you go below 15%, you get more muscle definition. Now, the question is, what's the best diet to get down? Let's say that you're, no matter what your genetics, let's say for any particular reason, whether it's a bodybuilding contest or whatever, you want to get down to, let's say, as close to 3% fat, or let's say 4 or 5% fat, which is a lot healthier. Let's say you want to get down to those low fat percentages. What's the best diet to do? Well, I'm going to tell you the best diet to do, and I want to state right at the start, that this is a disclaimer. I don't really recommend this diet. It's very, very extreme. It's very hard, but it does produce results. A lot of you younger guys might not remember a bodybuilder from the 60s and 70s named Dave Draper. You could look him up. You could look him up on Google. He was a blonde guy, about 6 feet, very muscular. He had very vascular. And yet, when Dave Draper first showed up in California in the early 60s, he was very, very smooth. He had what they call thick skin, not a vein to be seen anywhere. You could also see those photos. And I asked Dave was a friend of mine, I asked him years later, how did he transform his physique to go from this really bulky, smooth guy to a guy who was literally shredded, cuts everywhere, vascularity everywhere? And his answer was very terse but direct. What he said was tuna and water for 5 years. That's the diet that Dave Draper used to get shredded. Now, there's another guy that used that diet that very few people, only the really hardcore bodybuilding history fans might even remember. This is a guy who competed in the mid-60s. They called him the praying mantis for some reason, probably because of the pose I'm about to show you. His name was Ron Margus, and I'm going to show you this picture of him, if you could see this. Hold on a second, I'm trying to see. Can you see that photo? Ron Margus, and you can see he was a pretty ripped up guy. Ron Margus won the Most Muscular Awards in both the 1965 and 1966 AAU Mr. California. I don't think he ever won a national show. This guy was pure muscle definition. He was cut in the mid-60s when very few guys showed that level of muscle definition. This guy had cross cuts on his thighs. I've spoken to people who competed against him, and they told me that this guy was, you have to see this guy in person to believe it. He was literally shredded. The next guy to come along who was about as cut as Margus was, what's his name? The guy who oh God, I can't remember his name. Oh, pardon me, I have a little memory problem, but this guy later on, a pro bodybuilder who died, you guys will probably leave a comment, remember his name. He also was known for his shredded look, but he was also a huge drug user. Guys like Ron Margus and Draper didn't use the drugs they used. They depended entirely on diet. And the diet that both these men used was the tuna diet. Now, you know the way it works is there's the various versions of it, but basically you're meant to primarily consume only water and tuna for 3 straight days, nothing else. Then after that, you can add low-fat dairy products, fruit, poultry, and vegetables for as long as you want. During this phase, when you add the food back, you want to use what they call a zone ratio of macronutrients. That was developed by Barry Sears, the zone diet. That's 40% protein, 30% carbs, and 30% fat. That's the diet you stay on in between going on the tuna and water diet. The tuna has to be plain without oil, mayonnaise, vinegar, or spices, and it has to be enough to give you 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, which comes out to 3.3 grams per pound every day. That's a lot of protein. That's like 4 or 5 times more than the recommended protein allowance, which is 0.8 grams per kilogram for the average person. So it's a lot of protein. You're also supposed to drink 34 ounces or 2 liters of water daily, and you should also use some sort of fiber supplement. Some people recommend Metamucil, which is psyllium. You got to have fiber because on the water and tuna and water diet, there's literally no fiber at all, and you can get really constipated and messed up. So you want to take some sort of fiber serving. The fiber is undigestible carbohydrate. It passes right through you. It doesn't affect the diet, but it will keep you regular. Also, it's very important when you're on tuna and water, you have to use vitamin and minerals. This diet is completely devoid of many vitamin and minerals. So it's absolutely essential to take vitamin mineral. I would also recommend extra vitamin C and E. And also you might, if you want, it's optional, but you could also take a couple of branched chain amino acids, especially before you do aerobics to spare muscle. The branched chain is not really necessary because if you're eating that much protein, you're getting plenty of branched chain amino acid. After 3 days of eating nothing but tuna, fish, and water, you can add some leafy green vegetables, steamed non-starchy vegetables, fruit, and again low-fat dairy products, and skinless chicken. Now, tuna is a healthy low-calorie protein source, and it does contain omega-3 fatty acids, but it's relatively poor compared to more fattier fish such as mackerel, halibut, sardines. Tuna is not a great source of omega-3, contrary to what you might hear. Additionally, the tuna, one advantage of tuna, though, it's high in selenium, which is important, and you'll see why in a minute. But selenium provides anti-inflammatory, antioxidant effects, and also selenium is needed for thyroid function. A 3-ounce, 85-gram can of tuna packed in water contains only 73 calories, 16.5 grams of protein, only about a half a gram of fat, and no carbs whatsoever. So the problem with tuna, and you probably heard this before, and it's true, is that it tends to be high in mercury. Depending on which type of tuna you eat, tuna such as the variety of tunas like albacore, yellowfin, and big eye, those are the ones that have the most mercury. You should eat very little of those or avoid it completely. You should limit your intake of canned or light skipjack tuna to 12 ounces per week to avoid the mercury. However, there are ways around this. I'll get to that in a minute. Keep in mind that a 150-pound person on a tuna diet would be eating 18.5 ounces of tuna per day, or a whopping 55.5 ounces over 3 days. The maximum safe dose of mercury is 0.045 micrograms of mercury per pound of body weight, or 0.1 micrograms per kilogram. That means that a 150-pound person can consume up to 6.8 micrograms of mercury per day by eating this tuna. However, the tuna packs so much of the fish that you can easily exceed your mercury limits. Even eating only light tuna, a person would still be taking in 68 micrograms of mercury, 10 times the recommended amount. Now, it sounds like at this point you're saying, well, why even bother to go on tuna with all this mercury? It's garbage. Now, here's something to consider that you don't often hear about this. Selenium, which is contained in the tuna, actually neutralizes mercury, ingested mercury, by locking onto it and basically pulling it out of the body. Now, if you can eat this much tuna, I wouldn't depend on the selenium in the tuna. Rather, I would take, if you're not taking a mineral supplement or a vitamin mineral supplement that contains selenium, I would take a mineral supplement that contains about at least 100 to 200 micrograms of selenium. You don't want to exceed 200 micrograms of selenium because anything over that could adversely affect thyroid function. So the maximum amount of selenium you want to take in is about 200 micrograms a day. Also, dietary fiber. For example, bran If you eat dietary unprocessed bran, it also locks onto the ingested mercury, and 76% of ingested mercury is pulled out of the body just by eating unprocessed bran, which is very inexpensive, by the way. So those two solutions, selenium and dietary fiber, will neutralize the mercury effect of tuna, so you don't have to worry about it. In other words, you can have your tuna. Dave Draper said that he stayed on a tuna and water for 5 straight years. I mean, I don't understand how that's even possible. When I was a bodybuilder, I had the same lunch for about 25 years, and that consisted of a can of water-packed tuna, and also about 6 to 7 ounces of non-fat cottage cheese. And when I was not training for a contest, I would add about a half a quart of kefir, which is a kind of a liquid yogurt, or I would drink a quart of raw milk. That's only when I wasn't training for a contest. Otherwise, I'd only eat the tuna and the cottage cheese, and I would cut out the cottage cheese about 6 weeks before the contest, where I literally only had 2 cans of tuna for lunch. And like I said, I drained the tuna. It was dry as a bone. I didn't put anything on it, no mayonnaise. And the rest of the food I ate was just pure protein. I was on a low-carb diet. I ate a little lean meat and chicken. That was it. And I lost all my body fat. Got real, lean on that type of diet. I never went on the tuna and water diet, but theoretically, if you could handle this type of diet, I believe, honestly, that this diet will get literally anybody ripped. I don't care. I mean, seriously. I mean, even if you think you have a thick skin or something like that, or you have trouble getting cut on any kind of diet, this tuna and water diet will get you shredded. I really believe that. It takes a tremendous amount of willpower to stay on it. What I recommend is if you have a lot of body fat, instead of staying on the tuna and water for 3 days, use it for 4 or 5 days for at least the first 3 or 4 weeks, and then do the other foods I talked about, alternating with the tuna and water. Again, you don't want to stay on tuna and water straight. It's just too much, too hard on your brain. So that's about it. You can try it. Again, if you're looking to get down to 5, 4, even 3% body fat, this is the way to do it. I mean, your body will just eat away all its fat on this type of diet. And of course, when you're working out, if you add aerobics, you'll get your body fat down even faster. This will work for both sexes, men and women. One other thing I'd also add is I would also add at least every other day, add a source of fat in your diet. Something like, for example, extra virgin olive oil, maybe 2 tablespoons a day, because this diet is so low in fat that, especially if you're not on drugs, you have to be ingesting at least 20% fat calories daily to maintain testosterone levels. So, I would ingest, maybe even every day, have a tablespoon or 2 of extra virgin olive oil to at least maintain your testosterone levels. So that's about it for the tuna diet. If you want to have the best information you'll ever find anywhere on nutrition, exercise science, food supplements, which ones work, which ones don't, hormonal therapy, whatever you call it, women's health and fitness, ergogenic aids, the best type of diets, the best fat loss diets, the ones that really work. Subscribe today to my Applied Metabolics newsletter, www.appliedmetabolics.com. 40 to 50 pages every month, pure information, evidence-based, which also includes my 58 years of study and empirical knowledge, which cannot be duplicated by anyone else with any other digital publication. And also, if you subscribe, I will send you an invitation to join my private Applied Metabolics Facebook page, where each day I post new information on nutrition, exercise science, medicine, and general health. That's for subscribers only. I have an email portal on my Applied Metabolics site. It's also for only, current subscribers only are welcome to send me short questions, anything related to newsletter, anything else they want to know about. But you have to be a current subscriber. I don't answer unsolicited emails. You're welcome to leave comments under these videos, including suggestions for future videos. I can't guarantee I'll answer all the questions, though. I just don't have the time. I will, however, answer questions submitted to me on my website by current subscribers only. So that's about it. If you want to have the best friend you'll ever have, go to your local shelter, adopt a dog. They are the best. Take care.